Mm-hmm.
Okay, people, welcome back again to Angela's Caches. This is Gordon from the Outer Hebrides, who I had listened to going back a few years, and who I recently connected with on Facebook, not knowing who he was. And I also enjoying another visit from Charmaine Mulligan. And the beautiful thing that struck me was in Gordon and I telling each other stories. He talked about when he ran away from the Outer Hebrides as a 12-year-old to get to London to tell somebody that Jimmy Savile was dangerous. And this would have been a long time ago. And Charmaine Mulligan is another Scottish lady who, as a child and from childhood, tried to blow the whistle, without even knowing what the words were, just tried to sound the alarm. So I'm going to put them together. Charmaine's on a visit with her lovely partner, and they've just blessed my socks off. And Gordon is in the Outer Hebrides, and he's about to tell us a story. So go ahead.
Well, it's kind of like this. It was a Monday morning. I had a fisherman's jumper on, a scruffy pair of jeans and a pair of shoes, and I walked into the Bank of England. Amidst all the suits, I stood up in the queue. I went to the counter. I says, I want to speak to a man that can give me $19 million. He went away, he came back. He says, I can't do that. But he sent me down to number 33. Number 33. Numbers are significant if you're a conspiracy nut. So I goes down to the Royal Bank of Scotland headquarters, number 33, up to the 17th floor or whatever. And I met this beautiful redhead young lady in her mid-30s who had she brought an accountant type in his mid-60s out, and she says, what do you want the money for? I says, I can't tell you. She says, well, okay, I'll do a pre-disclosure thing and what have you. So the moral of the upshot of that is, if I wanted to beg money off the internet, then like I said, I've already went.
You could beg it in much bigger scales than.
I've met emirs, I've met sultans, I've been offered six-figure jobs in a multitude.
Yeah. And I've been courted by billionaires, and from Saudi Arabia and the UAE and the city of London and all the rest of it. So for anybody to think that I'm going to roll over for 50 quid. But let me just, getting back to more serious matters.
I've had able danger, you were saying. Yes.
No, well, I was just saying there was some feedback, a lot of positive feedback, but there was a couple of comments about why is he using the able danger, avatar, and why did he take an advance on the book? And as I was just saying off record, there's no shame. Activists and truth tellers need to shake off this shame. The Bible says a laborer's worthy of his hire. And before the internet, if you had something to write or disclose or broadcast or research, grants would flow in. Like you could get 100,000 grant to research such and such a subject. I believe the powers that shouldn't be are laughing at all of the people doing voluntary work online for nothing and feeling ashamed to get sent 50 quid, so
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I mean, but I just want to keep this to an hour. So well, I know I want to do this regularly, Gordon.
Let me just jump all over you, right? I produced the book. I sent them a book. I was given information from friends of Eric Trump, and because of the Able Danger people, there was a whole bunch of intelligent people behind the Able Danger network, and there was quite a lot of them too.
Do you mean intelligent or intelligence?
Both.
Yeah.
If you were ever on the Able Danger link, we were sending emails to every state governor, every district, every FBI, every CIA.
Yeah.
And incidentally, the time that my computer, my brand new 1 terabyte, it was terabyte memory had just come out that week, and I bought this computer. I phoned up the White House. They passed me on to the NSA. Then my computer blue screen and it never worked again.
I've got to tell you,
it's still in storage in case I ever.
I've got to tell you a phoning the White House story, right? Before I knew Obama was wicked, right? I had a Facebook profile with 5,000 friends and 2,000 followers, many of which included Rothschilds and like people from my past, career. I'm 65 now, so people and many had courted me. Once they saw who I was connected to, they would friend request me and so on. But I also had some, because I'd worked for the Saudi royals in the 70s, I had some fairly influential Middle Eastern people on my page, including like, some big names I could name, but, but one of them started making these jihad videos, trying to make a caliphate. And, I can't remember which war it was, but I was so naive. I contacted the American embassy in Dublin and I said, how do I get word to Obama? I've got a major terrorist on my friends list. And if it ever reached Obama, he must have been like, oh my God, who is this woman? Because it was worthy of news, but I didn't realize he was on the side, the very side that I was trying to expose.
We'll be talking about the Brotherhood coups.
Oh my God, it's like, talk about, I think naivety was programming for me to be able to infiltrate, because I always believed everybody was a good person. But I just want to briefly, because I want to keep this to an hour, and I want to focus just for this session on what we have in common, which is Jimmy Savile. So I've been discredited a lot online because there's a photograph in existence of me and two of my sisters and both my parents presenting a check to Jimmy Savile at the Stoke Mandeville Hospital. And I've had to defend that over and over again. The trolls just pull it out and say, oh, look, she's one of them, blah, blah, blah. But I just want to briefly say, I took my horse to university in Warwickshire. And by the end of the second year, my tutors said to me, if you want to get your degree, you're going to need to let go of, having your horse here, because I turn up to exams in jodhpurs with hay in my hair, and if my horse had colic, I wouldn't sit an exam and stuff like that. I just wasn't quite, in the program. So they said, look, you might want to send your horse home for your finals year. So I'd rung my dad and said, can you come and get my horse? I need to buckle down for my last year. And he said, no, and not unless you send the petrol money. And it was 125 miles and I was on a student grant. So I just said glibly, oh, fuck that, I'll ride her home. And then my mum picked up on that and said, oh, we'll do it for Jim Will Fix It, which was all the rage back then in the early 80s on the television. So it became a sort of unstoppable train where my mum and dad contacted all these elites along a 125-mile journey, and Jim Will Fix It, and it got sponsorship, and it got loads of, I've got a whole scrapbook of coverage, and we raised thousands. But the only thing that I could relate to was it's for Stoke Mandeville Hospital, where a lot of horse riding victims were with chronic back injuries and paralysis and stuff like that. So I thought, oh, all right, then raise it for Stoke Mandeville Hospital. But Jimmy Savile at that time had a room at Stoke Mandeville and had the keys to Stoke Mandeville and was abusing. I didn't know that.
The keys to the kingdom.
Yeah. And when we presented the check, he put his hands on my thighs, and I was like, whoa, that's a bit creepy. And he also couldn't wait to get back to his hospital work. It was like, he was just like, yeah, you've raised thousands. Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, take a photo. All right, bye then. So he had a quick grope, and he acted like a junkie that needed to get back in the bookies shop. And I just registered that and thought that's weird. But it's only years later I realized that the 4 nights that we were housed at different elites, mansions, stately homes, whatever, I can remember every minute of the day, riding, where we rode, when the newspapers came, what we collected. I remember untacking the horses, bedding them down, feeding them, cleaning the tack. I don't remember anything after that each night, And the only other Jimmy Savile thing was my mum sent me to Champneys, and she said, my mum used to go there regularly. It's a health spa. and she sent me for a week or something before my exams. So, you know, because I kept having meltdowns. And she said to me, "Oh, Jimmy Savile might be there." And she says, "He's a bit creepy. Watch out for him. And he keeps taking all the older ladies out for walks and stuff like that." So I did have a weird happening at Champneys, but I didn't consciously see Jimmy Savile. So other than the creepy check handover at Stoke Mandeville, I do believe my parents know more of him and his circle than I ever found out. They're both dead now, but I'm going to put you on to Charmaine now and just ask you to share your Jimmy Savile stories and go wherever it goes, and we'll connect again. Is that all right, Gordon?
Yeah, of course.
All right, here's Charmaine. All right, you go for it, sweetheart. Is that all right? I love Charmaine. And I love you, Gordon, too.
Little lass. Hey, how you doing?
Hi, Gordon. Nice to meet you.
Where are you from?
Endmeeting. I was born just outside Lanark, Rigside, small mining communities.
I was born in Whitburn, halfway along the M8 between Glasgow and Edinburgh.
Oh, were you? Not too far
Yeah.
away then.
And even
Similar
smaller
then.
mining town.
How old are you, if you didn't mind me asking?
Oh God, there's a question. 56-7. I was born in 67. The day the Torrey Canyon ran aground.
Ah, yes. I
Yeah.
was raised a bit of a nationalist by my late grandparents, so I'm very awakened to other things too. But
I used to bring whiskey to Donald Stewart and my granddad when I was 5, because Donald Stewart, my granddad, would sit along at the end of the house overlooking the loch and talk nonsense in politics.
the Stuarts.
Donald Stewart, he's the man that made the SNP before Winnie Ewing. And
Yes,
all the
as far as I'm aware of my historical ancestral path, I believe a lost bloodline was married into the Stuart clan long ago, when we go
Okay.
into ancestral history of the Celts.
It's my forte. I could tell you everything about Rosalind Chapel in the year 911 when the Knights Templar arrived in Scotland and they met the Clan Cameron, which means bent nose. Cameron,
Really?
and that's why David Cameron got the job recently, because his granddaddy ran HSBC for the Chicago mob.
See, this is why I think Angela wanted to introduce us, not just this. So Angela only told me about you a few weeks ago, and I'm going to speak as what I said when I first heard your testimony, as that 12-year-old boy who showed absolute courage. You've so inspired me. Hearing you do that, hearing that someone took the initiative like myself to try and speak out against these monsters. And as a survivor of this kind of abuse, I'd like to say thank you for what you've done on behalf of all the children that have been sold out to these monsters. I have been looking for people like you all my life. I became a bit obsessed in my younger days, seeking the truth like we all do. So to hear your story, I was so excited to speak to you, to speak to someone else who's still alive and still sane, more importantly, who hasn't been broken.
That's true. And the thing, I mean, my story is pretty simple. I rebelled against what I saw. Jimmy Savile, the Morning Cloud, used to come and park in my votes. It was a guy called Faulkner. I wasn't going to name his name, but he's still a main financer of the Labour Party. He had a holiday home in my village. And the girl next door ended up being Esther Ranson's nanny for 25 years. She disappeared at 14. And so this is all true stuff. And so I ended up in the children's system, and I've still got friends on my Facebook today from these times when St Andrews, Duffers Road. I can name names, petrol receipts, who ended up in Gordonston, bloody disco, stoned out of her tits. Prince Edward was there with his henchmen and a whole bunch of other elitists too. And that was a night to remember. Betty Cameron from Bucky, she had twins. She was 13. She had twins 9 months later. And a few of the other guys, they just disappeared off the map. They never got LinkedIn, they never got Facebook, they never grew up, they never got a national insurance number, they just vanished without trace. 5 or 6 of them that I could name. And I will do one day soon. But I got caught up in a whole bunch of stuff, including the whole Peterhead fiasco with the whole Holly Gregg and a whole bunch of other stuff too. Yeah, a lot of people.
So you know all about Don Wedger then and his involvement, and
I'm very well aware of that whole brigade and the entire
whole circle.
Operation. The operation that's behind that. I'm very well aware of it because I know, because I was there. That sounds like Max Boyce back in the sun. I know because I was there, but I do know because I was there. I ran the taxi company, Central Taxis. I was a night watchman over a New Year. We did 1,000 calls.
With respect, you sound like a man of truth, because we don't say I think, we say I know, because we
Well,
were
I do.
there.
That's what I'm saying. You know, all of this, dude. You can take me back in the newspaper headlines to this, and plus 1,000 more things better, because I've had my passport given back to me by the Chief Inspector of the West End Police after an international drug bust involving a whole bunch of nasty Americans at an Air Force base that's never, ever, ever, ever got into the newspapers. But that came as a result of Able Danger. Able Danger did a hell of a lot of good work until it went all tits up and down the chute completely, based on a lie, because they started selling fake law as a solution, as a possible remedy, as a relief, as a restitution. And you can't use fake law. You can't use the devil's toolkit to beat them. Doesn't work that way.
Oh, amen to you. I think I'm the only person publicly just now standing against fake common law and showing them the scams of Satan. And I'm being very targeted for it, because I stand with Jesus and natural law. I stand in my DNA, which is the most powerful thing about us. Hello, Ruby. Yeah. But keeping it on subject, that's what Angela said to watch. You two Scotchies will talk and talk and talk, and you'll go off. But already, just with that small conversation, I can see that the same circle that has been around me all my life with systematic silencing and using the corporations to abuse me, like Sir John Wedger and things like that. I know that what things like MI5, MI6. Over the past 5 years, my targeting has become more obvious, more harder than it ever has before, because of my public work. So I'll give you a brief. I can do mine quick without too much details. I was just after my 5th birthday, November 1987. I received this, I don't know if you can see it. My arm was put through an old-fashioned washing machine, a mangle, the rollers.
Oh, wow, yeah.
It was made out to be a terrible accident, which in later years it found out that my mother or father possibly did it deliberately to get me taken into St James's Hospital. Now, this happened after a few horse shows around royal attendance. I met Charles and Margaret. And when I say I met them, I personally was around them. You'll know what I mean. I wasn't a person waving at them. I was sitting on Charles's knee, very close to Anne, Margaret, numerous shows. My family wasn't allowed to attend these. I was there on my own as a child. There was very strict criteria to them. So then I was taken into this hospital with an accident. My abuse started in that hospital, the same as many other whistleblowers. Very confused memories to do with the drugs, but clear memories of grooming, sickening emotions, awakening to marks on my body, pain within my body. As years go on and you're growing up through life, I believe my father was involved in Freemasonry. I was raised very abusive from my parents, violence, psychological abuse, sibling rivalry. It seems to be textbook Freemason families. There's a lot of abuse. My mum tying me up in rooms, water torture, things that are just very horrendous. My faith and being a country girl is what kind of brought me through. My horses, more than anything, they seem to be a saviour of all of us children. As I got older, like yourself, I couldn't shut up, so I suffered more. By 8 years old, I was labelled someone that was mentally unwell. I was illegally medicated as a child. So I spent most of my adulthood trying very hard to unleash memories and do a lot of healing work to remember things. As a child, I didn't have a lot of memories, but things became very apparent when I turned 12. My mum tried to leave the abusive Freemason husband. She was separated by me and my sisters, me and my sisters from her. We went through child removal. We were kidnapped away from her. I was taken and forced to live with my abusive father. I was there for just over 6 months. And like yourself, I'm not one for shutting up or doing as I'm told. So I ran away too. I travelled not as far a distance as you, but I managed to get myself home to my blood grandparents. At the age of 13, I was a fugitive, basically, living in friends of the family. The police were looking for me. They were sending 8, 9, 10 police vehicles to arrest my grandparents, my extended family. There was a lot of pressure put on my family to give me up. But after about 8.5 months, I managed at 13 years old to reclaim my sovereignty, and I get the courts to stand down using my faith. using love, using my right to family, and for whatever reason, I managed to get the grace of God and get to stay where I was loved and safe. So when I got back home, I became a fighter for my sisters who were still in the abusive parents' home. I watched social services cover up horrendous physical and mental abuse. I have strong suspicions of sexual abuse on my sisters, but I believe they suffer Stockholm syndrome. So this went on for many years, and I got sent to Bernardo's, social services, youth problematic children programs. All of these services, from police to Bernardo's, social services, I have been groped, sexually touched between my legs, older men. It became the normal by that age, to be honest, if I tell you the truth. It was normal for older men.
Social service system, girl, I could name 100 like you. It's a true story.
And it's like a detachment. You grow up with it, so it becomes normal, and you learn to just, it didn't really bother me by that age. It was what they did, you know, be vigilant, and that's just what they do. They like to grab at my ass, they like to rub me down there. Bernardo's Children's Project, they were very complicit in silencing of me, labelling me problematic child at school, labelling me things that I wasn't. I believe the corporation counselling is a big part of scaring survivors. Through all of that, threats on my sister. If you keep doing this, your mum will end up unwell. What she did, my mum was suicidal. She was very abused by the Freemasons. She lost her children. She tried to kill herself, I don't know how many times, and I was a child carer. Growing up too young, like most survivors. So this went on for many, many years. Eventually, my sisters came back. Stories were told. They were abused too. But a lot of them take the fear and the silence and the option of an easy life. So I've kind of been stood myself most of my days. I've had horrendous body damage. I have a twisted womb. I have inverted problems with my uterus. I'm very damaged inside. And somehow through alcohol and self-harming and wanting to be dead for many years, God managed to bring me back to love, I think. Apologies, I always get emotional, and I shouldn't apologise because I teach my survivors to be proud of their emotions and feeling. This went on for years. I finally got back to God through all I'm the bad child, I'm the problem, it's my fault, I'm dirty. Got back to God, I found healing. I managed to build up my own business. I detached from activism. I learned to play the game of survival, which I'm sure you'll understand, and I became very good at it. And I actually got a relatively happy life as a landscape self-employed gardener.
Oh,
God
wow.
bless me with, I like nature. Nature saved my life. Nature's God.
I was making 40 quid. I was making 40 quid a job back in 1978 because we moved into a new council estate.
Doing the same.
The first garden I landscaped was my art teacher. She was a lesbian, but we didn't even know what one of them was.
No, we didn't, did we? We were so naive.
We didn't care. She gave me $40 to landscape the mud in her back garden. But yeah, I mean, I hear you, girl. And the thing is, the God character, the Matrix maker, call them what you will, because everything that brings youth to use.
I call them the Luciferians because I don't get lost in New Age spiritual bullshit, is the truth.
Exactly. But when it comes to everything to do with a person and to do with a living entity, Genesis 1:26, we've got dominion over everything.
Amen.
The law of the land, the air, and the water. The things that
and I think that's the obvious thing, and you and I and a very few of us scattered over the earth, we know who we are, and regardless of what they do in our terrible testimonies and what we've endured, like Angela says, there's nothing that Lucifer or Satan's army could ever throw at me that would stop this Celtic daughter getting back up. I have an inability to stay down to those that are beneath me, and that's what it comes down to. But the more recent part of my story was I helped many survivors because I'm technically a success story. I didn't lose my mind. I didn't lose my love and the goodness of God. I got my own business. I thought I found love. I got married. I was blessed with 2 little angels, Mia Lilybell and Rhea Hope, 2 little girls, with medical science telling me I'd never carry children because my womb was so damaged. Miracles indeed. God bless me.
That's a true story. that's a true story, girl.
Yeah, and I heard you say in numbers, Jamaica, I speak the old language, 7 years and 7 days apart. I know my father was with me, blessing me, doing things that science and this man-made world could never achieve. So healing came through my first child, and I didn't become my parents. I learned from everything. I had so much love. I had everything I could dream of, family, and I didn't seem to be being persecuted anymore. They seemed to leave me alone. I got to raise my child. I say got to because I still know we're living in slavery, even though we're free. 9.5 years, and I allowed myself to become a victim to a narcissistic, violent husband.
Oh,
he near killed me in 2017. I had 29 breaks in my body. Those little angels that God sent me beat their father, 9.5 years old and 2.5. They beat him off me and saved my life. I went to hospital near dead. God saved me again, I believe. I spoke out. I did the right thing. And after 9 weeks of telling the truth and near death, my children were taken from me. I was falsely persecuted. I hurt my children. Risk of emotional harm, even though the grounds were accusing me of harming my children. They separated my daughters, and they brought all that hell of my childhood back to me on purpose, as they do. They took my daughters apart, my eldest. They refused counselling resources. I have had no contact for 5 years. They victimised me again. They tried everything they could through satanic games, narcissism in the system to break me, to get me to kill myself. They thought naming me a child abuser, I would crawl away and do what most people would probably do. They took my whole life. They punished me. My ex-husband was supposed to be in prison for 7.5 years, roughly his sentence. He signed a Section 20 adoption form on our child and got released after 4 months. They housed him in my family's small mining village opposite me. I spent 18 months being beaten, him breaking into my home, my neighbours and village people phoning police.
Oh, for the love of God.
Nothing going on. This man was, I felt like Satan himself was against me. He was breaking in my house. I was raped by him. I was living in hell.
This was in the 80s and the 90s?
No, this was in my adult life in 2017 until 2019.
Oh, really? What the hell's happened to Scotland?
Oh, this is so...
I'm finding this difficult to comprehend, because usually everywhere around about the city, dude, everybody knew everybody, literally, yeah. You know? Sorry, girl.
So as much as God, I know, I understand, because even though I went through such a horrendous childhood, when I realised that, I'm thinking, why have you put this monster back beside me? This is Freemasons again. Are you trying to kill me? Why would he get early release? Why would you house him beside me? Why, when he's released on good behaviour orders, that you are releasing him again and again? Why are you saying he's got PTSD when he's a fucking monster who's telling people he wants to cut my throat and saw my head off? He's hunting me. He's harassing me. He's abusing me. So through despair and seeing that the system was even worse than I had ever thought, and it had gotten worse, I reached out because I thought my children and me were going to end up dead. I was terrified when I first broke my silence again and became a whistleblower. So I met other women in Scotland. It became international, but we'll start with Scotland. Within a few months, I managed to get cases of 174 women, the same criteria and profiling as myself, where most definitely the system was using highly violent, demonic men to try and kill us all survivors of high-profile paedophilia. There was patterns growing, you know, and I'm like yourself, I'm like a dog with a bone. When I get something, I'm on it.
Oh, girl, you need to be careful, because let me tell you a story about a friend.
Oh, God, I know what I've done, what I did at the start. I made the mistakes, and I became so international and speaking out, and I became celebritized, if you like. I found myself in 2018 under the branch of anti-terror special branch, MI5, an anti-terror branch of police. I was harassed in my home. I was kidnapped 7 times, once for 5 days. They labelled me a Christian extremist. I was put on 7 Sheriff Court gagging orders. I was put on a restrictions of libertation where I couldn't leave Scotland. But you'll be proud of me, because I never bent my knee to any legislation, and I've still never spent a day in prison. All head fuckery, psychological warfare, scare tactics.
Absolutely and absolutely. But I just want to make reference to a friend of mine called Kismet, who came from Edinburgh, and she used to spend most of her childhood down in the catacombs underneath the city. of which there are vast and many, and lead to a lot of different addresses, including St Giles #1, the First Lodge. And
So did
on.
we as children, Gordon. You know,
Uh-huh.
when we grow up in Scotland, we're nosy little fuckers. We're in about all things.
Unfortunately for her, her daddy worked for Nicholas Fairbairn. And she called me, she said, you need to get up here. I says, I can't. And a couple of weeks later, she was overdosed.
Can I tell you why I believe I'm still alive and why I believe that? So here, I went into Buckingham Palace.
She came to London to visit me as well, by the way. She came to London to visit me a couple of weeks before that.
Strangely, I had a brother, as soon as people visit me, they get sectioned as soon as they leave my house. I've noted patterns of that too when we connect in the flesh.
Scotland's a small place. There are more people in Birmingham than there are in Scotland.
Yeah. The world's a small place when we look at it.
If Scotland was independent properly, it would be the richest country in the world.
Oh yes. Don't get me into our nation, brother. I'm right beside you. That's a whole other blog.
Let's just keep this at the levels where it really matters.
Yeah, so when they took my children, basically, I got to the point where I was so close to Jesus and our ancestral history that I decided to become a martyr. That's what I decided. I'm going to go for the fucking cross, if so be it. You can bring the whole fucking British crown down on me, but I'm going for this. So I went through the fence of Buckingham Palace. It was live streamed everywhere. I climbed through the fence. I called them out with sovereign language. I called them out for who they are, the demonic bloodlines. And I stood on my bloodline, which through historical events and investigation, I believe we are the descendants of Christ himself, and our bloodline and the Celtic tribe are the guardians of all humanity. I believe I'm a regal royal bloodline, and those fucking positions they have are mine, my people's. I've walked about public like that, and I've more than tested. I've done things you really shouldn't be doing. And I threatened to hang the Queen public. I threatened to hang Leo, whatever his name is, here when I arrived in Ireland. I went to his house. I believe that when I found my identity and my true DNA and my claim for my throne, that is why they won't directly come against me. And that's why I'm not in an institution, because God showed me who I am, and my nature and the way I am is I recognize myself as a sovereign queen. I guard my people, I guard the earth, I guard the children. I'm all in love, and no matter what they do to me, I can't stand down. There is something different in the Celts. And I do believe that it's our bloodline.
There's so much more to what you've just said.
I know.
Than you'd ever probably know, because imagine Moses came from Orkney and Edinburgh was Jerusalem, and the two vitrified fort cities has melted in Scotland.
Oh, I'm so thanking God for bringing you into my path.
Dude, there are more than me know about this. There are guys who are writing books about this back.
So I met a few of you free men of the land in my earlier years.
I'm not a free man of the land. No. Don't badge, don't label. Free man of the land, what is that? Depends what your definition of land is, yeah? Words are important. Sovereign words.
So I believe in no land ownership at all. I believe in no land ownership.
Genesis 1:26. We've all got stewardship. Every single one of us has got stewardship to look after it for each other.
Yes, and pass it on to the next generation.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole plan. And
we don't do it for money or title. We do it because we love to do it. We love the planet.
No corpse or no individual can claim superior title because the GOD did not sign a piece of paper with any man.
I will give you these lands. God gave us to us, all of us, every single one.
One life, one reality, one experience, one existence, and hope that you get a better eternity.
I'm seeing you with your whiskey. I was such a terrible Scot. I could never drink whiskey. And when I came to Ireland, back to my ancestral lands where the Mulligans came from, I had toothache a few months ago, changing the subject. And the Irish all told me try whiskey, but it always made me sick. But I managed to do it. I had an Irish whiskey, and oh my goodness, the stuff is amazing for pain on toothache. It absolutely cleared everything. So now I'm a whiskey fan of medicinal whiskey.
I was always partial to it. When we were small, we used to go out 5 o'clock in the morning in the boat to catch fish and check the nets and catch salmon and lobsters and crabs and all that kind of stuff. And
I learned to lobster pot just a few years ago.
We had rum and raw egg. That would be our breakfast. A tot of rum, dark rum with raw egg, and that kept us glowing for the next 4 or 5 hours.
5 a.m. I used to get up at that time with my late grandfather, Andrew Mulligan, to go out and put snares out for the rabbits. I was raised by a poacher family, the system would call them, but I was raised by a free family, a sovereign family.
Well, we had a couple of acres, a couple hundred sheep in paradise.
You're like
Six
me
months.
just now. I've only got an acre and a half, my Irish partner. We've got goats. I've just got my first pigs. I grow all my
Oh.
own food, but I'm super excited. My pigs, I've never had them before, and it's just brilliant fun. I'm loving doing it.
They're awesome animals, that's for sure.
Animals saved my life. Me and Paul were just talking about that. The greatest empaths and those that carry the biggest emotional burdens, and have saved so many humans as our companions, our pets.
It's a fact. I mean, we were brought up with dogs everywhere, and I've never had a problem with a dog ever. Do you know what I mean? Even alleged guard dogs and stuff like that. It's just one of these things. And it's true, because I came from literal paradise and I was thrown in with the ultra elite cream crap of train spotters. You know, I got thrown into like the Scottish penal system, and I met some really, really nasty people. I woke up one day and this guy, this is what you're in for. He showed me the newspaper. He grabbed his girlfriend's head with a hammer and hit her 11 times and splattered her head all over the breakfast table. After 11 years in the Scottish penal system, he got out, kidnapped the social worker, terrorised her all the way up the A9, and took her into an attic in Lossiemouth and held her hostage there for 2 or 3 days, intermittently beating her up and being
That
nasty.
comes as no surprise. The horror stories I've heard.
That was one of my cellmates back in 1982.
You had a lot of loss. I listened to a lot of Irish rebel songs and folk songs, and especially coming over here the last 8 months, God brought me over here. God's had me on an ancestral path, and listened to those songs. I just realised when we talk about spiritual war, we've been in it since the day we were born, all of us. We were born into spiritual warfare. But it's those songs recently, I was like, looking back over my life, I've lost my comrades. I've lost so many people. I heard you at the start with Angela saying, people just disappearing. I would no sooner meet someone who had similar stories in my teen years, and they would just disappear. And I know they're dead. I know they were being murdered. And the same in my adult years, if I met someone that could collaborate my story, they'd vanish, they'd be gone, they'd just disappear.
The day that John Lennon died, that was the first time that I ever had my head turned, as it were.
Are you that old? I didn't think you were that old.
I was in a children's home in a town called Dufton. There was 12 of us, with matron and a helper called Sue, Runaround Sue, because she was a gypsy. Her and her boyfriend lived in a tent. He was a caretaker at the local castle. And anyway, the night John Lennon died, Paul McElroy, who was Liverpudlian, but his dad owned a grocer shop in there, and he was crying so much they let him go home. And that night was the night that corrupted me forever, shall we say. And that was the night. And long story short, I spent about 9 months in hospital after that. I had my appendix out. That didn't take too long. So then I went back and spent another 8 months getting lumbar punches twice a day because they thought I had meningitis. I just couldn't really tell them why I didn't want to go back. But that was
see, that's me. As an adult, I couldn't stay in hospitals. I pulled drips out my arms. I had a fear of hospitals. And with being silenced and labelled a crazy child and a fantasist and no one believing you, I did look crazy with my behaviours when no one understands that in that hospital, I got raped. They made me bleed. They hurt me in that hospital, and it proceeded through multiple hospitals all over the UK. Going back to that with Savo, I believe that I was a meal ticket for my parents. As soon as the abuse started, my father was promoted from a steel fabricator, basic labourer, to the health and safety inspector of the whole UK. Huge wage increase, massive houses that didn't match things, you know. I was travelled about and rented out, sometimes anally, sometimes frontal, but during that abuse as well, the reason I do what I do is like yourself, I used to blame myself and carry a lot of guilt for the children that I witnessed being harmed that didn't make it. And that's why I keep coming back and fighting, because I've seen so many children disappear that I know haven't made it, and I know how lucky I am. I know how blessed I am. And that's why even though we suffer and we get abused and it's like I can see the same heart as you. I read energy. I'm all about energy. I'm a true sovereign, and I feel your heart. I feel the goodness. I feel the sorrow of the loss of those souls that you witness things happen to. And it's endearing to meet another soul that I can feel the same goodness. You know, in this movement, there's so much infiltration and fakes amongst us, like John Wedger mentioning him. I know he's raped women. I've got his victims being counselling by me. And these Freemasons, it's not bad enough that these satanic bastards abuse us. They then dress up as us and be amongst us and mock us and trick us, you know. That I think that's the worst part of it, that the abuse is bad enough.
It's true, but at the end of the day, girl, it was the DOD that designed us to be here today with this facts and this truth so we can speak them.
I know why God saved me, and I praise Jesus and I praise our ancestors every single day.
I ended up meeting pals with Jack Straw. Jack Straw was coming around visiting, and a whole bunch of other names and people back in the day that were involved in a whole bunch of things going on at hospitals with physically and mentally handicapped people, such as Holly Gregg. But I'm not saying that I saw her.
Yeah.
Well. And that's
So
a true story, but, and I was there, so this is why I know what I'm talking about, because I fucking was there.
Yeah.
And I know who was there, and I know how it interconnects, and it ties into a whole, but it involves bloody bingo halls in Corsica and Malta. That's how they were getting rid of the money.
That was me when I was speaking on something the other day. Someone just put a basic question. I want to know who the Freemasons are, and it's quite simple to answer. They're everyone. They're your school teachers, your judges, your doctors, your police. They are everyone. They're the little old lady across the road that's nice to you and likes to chat about your life, you know, making people understand without sending them half and saying it's a very difficult process of waking them up. And
I mean, technically speaking, to be honest with you, they're the medium cogs, because everything is on a need to know basis.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter, even if you're a president of the Council of Foreign Relations, if you don't need to know, they don't tell you. Do you get me?
Yeah.
And so that's the way that they've boxed the system in. They've decompartmentalized it, and that's how they've made it so obfuscating for anybody to see through, because of that facade. And that's their undoing, technically speaking, because let the truth be seen. Bring forward your corporation. Here's my statement of truth. Where's your statement of truth? To get 26 people, common law grand jury, the way of old. It's a win-win situation. And the United States of America is getting closer to that as we speak, because even they realize, the good people amongst them, they know that they're being lied to and being shafted by the satanic fucking bar court system that's just out to sell death and destruction and guns and bullets and bandages and political gains for different flag waving nations. And
that's the belief I have for all that we're out in truth and we're testifying, and we don't want this to be happening to children. God's placed me among so many survivors, and I believe it's to keep their energies up and keep them in hope and keep them realizing that there's more to us than you ever realize, and there is far more goodness in this world than they would have you believe. You know, this psychological warfare and chemical indoctrination, keeping everyone afraid and keeping them in this mentality where they're afraid to say what they think or afraid to fail. And so, although I've got such a horrendous story, I'm not a victim to them. I'm a survivor in the sense they never got my soul or my love or my heart. And you know, I'm not out here, poor me. I'm blessed. I am blessed every single day that I've never became bitter and dark and hard like them. And this for me is, I want others to see that little bit of heaven that I think you grew up in as well. And I believe my grandparents.
It still technically is. It's what you make it.
Heaven's always been here. It never left. And
exactly. And that's what you need to project, is the positive, the truth, and the vibe that. It's like I said on the Able Danger shows every single night, if 50.0001% of the people said, please God, world peace tomorrow, we'd wake up to world peace tomorrow. But that's why they keep us disenfranchised.
The power of manifestation.
Exactly. It's a scary thing. And that's the only thing that they do fear is unity, because they can't stop unity. Look at all the Dutch farmers recently stopping the motorways with their tractors.
The same in France, the same in the Netherlands. I've been following everything.
Look at the panic it caused the last time they did it here with the fuel.
Well, come on, Gordon. They locked the full world down with lockdowns because resistance was saying no.
The thing is, William Hartnell in 1963, they started a TV show called Doctor Who. And that involved 50 years of somebody running around after this guy saving the universe, screaming, doctor, 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 doctor. And this is why the whole pandemic thing they've sold it to is like a bunch of roosters.
I think on a personal note, I'm going to chat to you. We've been doing some digging here, and we are very convinced in the 70s that to do with nuclear weaponry and the 5G, the radiation that's going on, that's causing all these EMF signals. There's so many contributing factors to why people can't seem to care about things and wake up, so to speak. But we've been digging a lot of stuff around here, and in the 70s, before the 70s, the world was a very different place. There was a lot happened during the 70s, a lot of hiding things and destruction and destroying churches. The Church of the True Faith is especially, but recently.
Do you remember cremola foam? Cremola foam was the introduction of the man-made aspartames and the GMOs into the populace.
Yes.
Like 1972. That's when they started introducing the nasties.
So that's, I was saying to people, you're all fearing nuclear war. We've been in a nuclear war since the end of the 60s. It's in your technology, it's in your Wi-Fi, it's in your things in your house. And it was my grandfather, he used to hate electric. He used to sound like a paranoid person because he just didn't trust none of it because he said it was all radioactive.
Which it is.
Yes, and that's, you know, that's when you're sitting back with wide awake eyes, you're like, you fuckers, you've thought of everything. You devious fuckers, you've actually covered every avenue to the point humanity really doesn't have a chance. They were born into slavery, mental, chemical. You know, that's why it's, for me, I'm not hateful like yourself. I don't do hate. I don't even hate Prince Charles or Jimmy Savile anymore. God set me free of all that because even with my abusers, I understand that they know no different. They were born into paedophilia. They were abused and taught this too. You know, God has done so much. And on this quest of what we're doing, like you say about everyone praying, I pray every single day that they can open their hearts again and feel the pain and come back to love and realise how easy we could be living in heaven again. You know, how easy it would be to stop these heinous crimes against these children.
I completely agree. It would take an hour to reverse the entire position of the Federal Reserve and turn it into a credit agency so that everybody could get what they deserve and what they desire, because there's no population, there's no climate change, there's no fucking desecration. God,
you know, that's what hurts me most.
God did not put this thing into being and think to himself, oh, I'm going to let them F it up. He didn't do that.
God intended us to love and thrive and live in peace. And I'm a very old soul, and I know I was here before, and I don't seek a dream of something. I seek the peace that I knew in my childhood and I knew in former lives, and I've known since the beginning of time. And what hurts me the most is that these people think that they're not entitled to anymore. The belief that this is all there is to life, suffering, stress-induced condition, being a prophet for them. You know, it's I'm at the point in my own personal journey, sometimes I get frustrated because I want them to believe they're entitled to something more, you know, like me, that no matter what they do to you, it doesn't give them a right to take food from anyone's tummy or take shelter from the weather, or, you know, the way humanity's programmed, like, I done a sin, I done wrong, I done this, so I'm starved, so I'm homeless, so I'm forgotten. It's so wrong. We're so desensitized to love.
That's what they've been selling for the last 400 years. That's the way they've done it. And then when they discovered radio and television, poof, all the wars happened. But I mean, the thing is, ultimately, they are not in control. The boss is in control. Okay, it's like Bob Marley says, they've got to fulfill the book, the opening of the gates.
I play Redemption song all over the place when I used to be allowed to stand in the streets. It got to the point I couldn't.
You know how they killed him? They put a cancerous nail in his boot.
Someone told me that once.
Jimi Hendrix drowned in wine. And
but there's a common pattern, isn't there? Anyone who promotes love and unity and history, you know, you don't need to be super intelligent. You just need a wee bit of common sense and to look with the eyes of your hearts, not your minds, like they taught you. And making the people realise that, like Bob Marley said again, be the change you want to see in the world. I started with such small things. Put one item of food in a food bank. If every single human being did a tiny little thing, it would amount to so much, you know, like the worker ants, I suppose, if we all come together. And I see it though. That's one thing.
The thing is, my dear, I don't mean to patronise, there are people doing that. There are on a whole different stratas and levels. I mean, I know victims of the whole Scottish system since 1978 when I became involved in it first and foremost. And I don't.
You know, that's the best thing about speaking public with technology. You're no longer alone. The loneliness and not finding others that knew what was happening to you. That's why I used to cut my wrists. That's why I used to want to be dead, because I didn't think there was any others like me, strong like me. And the more we unify and connect in our hearts and our energies, the stronger each of us becomes. Just, I feel myself getting emotional just because I, as a survivor, as a child victim, I'm so thankful to men like you. I'm thankful to women as well, but there's lesser men. You'll see it yourself from your generation. Men have become so afraid and have really sold themselves out. And I get so thankful when I see men like you.
This is true, but that was deliberately programmed.
Yeah, I know what they've done to them.
I was saying about that 20 odd years ago. But yeah,
and that's why it's so important.
I've got friends on Facebook. Shona, she was my girlfriend when I was 12, and we used to hold hands and pass each other Dear Johns twice a day in the class. And every time that I ever ran away, the police would arrive at her door because she was the only one that I ever wrote to from wherever. So,
do you know, you sound so like me with a running away.
There'd be a Monsters of Rock. The Monsters of Rock would be Iron Maiden were playing at Donington. Got to go. So out over the fence and gone that night, you know.
That was me, straight out. I mean, I remember
hand myself back in at the local police station. I'm wanted in Scotland, get me home and feed me.
See, I wasn't like that. When I ran away, I went to the mountains. I slept in cowsheds. I didn't trust humans.
Girl, listen, we did the maltings. We slept in it for a week and we were
safer with nature and animals, isn't it? Children are smart. Stay away from humans.
That was back in the Sex Pistols, God Save the Queen and all of that. That was what everybody was bopping to in the discos around Bucky and Cullen and Fenechty and all these places.
Do you know something, Gordon? Once we're off, I'm going to send you a picture of my late grandfather. I believe that God always, the way he works, you have such a physical likeness. And that was the only family member that actually believed my trauma and did support me when I was younger. That was my protector, if you like, my guardian. And it's so strange that you have such a physical resemblance, the big grey beard and your nature, the way you're making jokes, it's very familiar. And my papa was a true sovereign man of God too. And it's the spirit in you. These are so similar.
God willing. And thank you. It's a compliment to my granddad, because my granddad kind of brought me up, and
so did mine.
He was known as a gentleman.
So was mine. They said there was a gentleman in a league of his own.
Yeah, that was a compliment. So if I ever begin to emulate he was 95. He died on Monday, the 5th of August, 1975 at 1:10 after he'd had his lunch. And I went in to light his pipe, and I used to sit at the end of the bed and pretend we were rolling out the loft and checking the nets and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, he expired that day. Good man. He was in the Falkland Islands. He was in South Georgia on the whaling. He traveled the entire length of South America as a gaucho, sailed around the world twice in 2 world wars, came back and produced 8 babies, and expired on Monday, the 5th of August, 1975.
What a man. Well, do you know what? God bless both our grandfathers for raising such strong wee children.
Part of the clan chat, and three of the ancestors were ministers that arrived in the Hebrides just after the Culloden fiasco. So I know my Scottish history too.
Yeah. So I
want to do 5 minutes with you to wind up, Gordon. Is that okay?
Sorry, Angela. Yes, listen. I've lost track of time. I think.
No, you're right.
As we knew we would.
Yeah, no.
Well, thank you for speaking with me, Gordon. I'll get you added on social media, and I want to talk to you more, obviously.
Let me frozen.
Unstable.
Don't exit yet.
You're welcome.
Don't go yet.
Both of you. No, Kat, listen. You're welcome anytime.
Yeah, don't exit yet. I'm just swapping seats with Charmaine.
I'm going to be picking your brains. I have 100 questions. So God bless you. Lots of love and light to you, and I'll speak to you soon.
I know, it's so hot in here. I did the domestic goddess. I went and put the dinner on. But look, I just wanted to thank you for the
nice one. Hey, it's that time of evening, though.
Yeah, no, I just think it's more important. We need to all start reconnecting and taking things out of the ashes and seeing what still survives, you know. what is it they say? If you put it into the furnace, the dross rises to the top and you take it off, and then you have the pure silver or gold or whatever is left behind, you know. So I'm delighted to connect with you. And Facebook is my main sort of blogging place. And that's where you and I kind of connected. So I'm delighted we brought it over here. I made a blog of our last interview, and I'll make another one of this. And long may it continue. Is there anything else you want to say?
I hope I didn't swear.
Look, I swear, I do.
I can't actually rise to the occasion. You see, English is my second language. By the time I was 5, they said, no, learn English. What, you want me to vociferate all this exacerbatory garbage? Okay.
No, I read the YouTube guidelines. When I uploaded our last video, now they did say this is not monetizable.
Okay.
But they didn't take it down, and they didn't give me a strike for it. And when you go through rating your own video, it only says, is there excessive cursing throughout the recording? I think everybody can let slip the odd F and blind, you know. I know I do. I know I do.
The thing is, I know that every word that I uttered, bring it on, libelers, bring it on.
Yeah, well, I've been told so intensely since 2015. I think there's been at least 100 grand spent on trolling me in professional videos where they clip everything. And
once you get popular, they don't want people like, hello, divide.
Yeah. So anyway, good luck to them. God bless them.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Gordon, let's talk again soon. And I'm sorry it got delayed, but
not at all. You're welcome. I've enjoyed it muchly. God willing.
All right, good.
Have a good evening.
All right, God bless.